Hey, this is Naja Young. I know I've been away for a while. Thank you to those people who have subscribed, all 89 of you, to my channel on YouTube, and those who are my followers and friends on other platforms. What's up? I know I'm looking a little haggard, a little rough today, but it has been rainy and I didn't sleep good last night, but it was for a good reason. I was so excited from attending it was Cinelease Three Ring out here in Covington, Georgia, and Georgia Entertainment had a program yesterday, and it was all about um, this creator economy that we have now and fundraising, how to get funds to make our art, our films, to make content to share with you all. And as a filmmaker myself, I found it very, very affirming, if I'm being real, to be there because a lot of times you just feel crazy. I won't even front. You feel like, what am I doing? I'm spinning my wheels. How am I going to find money to make this movie that I believe in so much? This project. And I'm fortunate. I do have a feature film under my belt. I have several short films under my belt, music videos. I've been asked to consult on a lot of different things. However, it's all about getting that next project out and completed. And I have something that I love right now that I can't wait to share with you all. But how am I going to fund it? How will I finance it? Where do I look for financing for my film? Because you don't necessarily want to sell, and you may not be able to get money from what we call pre-sales. So, say you got a big actor or someone attached to your film. In my case, I'm a writer, director, and a producer. So, I'm going to be attached to my films in at least three different ways, right? But for some people, if they're writers or producers, they're not directing. So they may get a big name director, and you would be blessed if you got some big name director who has some name recognition to come and direct the project that you're working on. And for just for conversation's sake, let's say Ryan Coogler was interested in directing your film. Well, then you could go to people who finance films and say, hey, we've got Ryan Coogler who's interested in directing our film. He's attached to our film. So what that means is I would be like, not necessarily a verbal agreement, but we have a written agreement that if I get the film financed, he will direct the film. That name has name recognition. Why? Ryan Coogler just directed and released Sinners. Okay, not only Sinners, but Creed. Not only Creed, but of course Black Panther and Wakanda Forever. So he has name recognition. Say I don't have a Ryan Coogler who's interested in directing, but maybe I have someone like a Michael B. Jordan who said, well, if you find financing for this, I'll come on and I want to act in it. Right. So then I leverage that. I take that to somebody with some money. They're excited because, oh, he's got name recognition, which means people are going to be drawn to the project. Right. So you'll make the money. You sell some rights before you even go out, essentially, and shoot frame A of the film, right? So that's one way to do it. The other way to do that is, you look for investors, right? So there are pros and cons to having investors in your film. Your First of all, when people talk to me about investing in film, and I know this from actual experience, investors want their money back. And they should. They should get their money back. But the truth of the matter is if you're an investor in a film, you may not see money for a while. And by a while, I'm talking about a year or two, possibly three, maybe four. Now, the thing about being an investor is once money starts rolling in, it is going to pay dividends, right? So you are going to get a quarterly check, monthly check, however you all work out the details. You will get your investment back plus interest. They don't just want their money back, guys. So if they loan you, let's say $250,000, which I know that sounds like a ginormous amount of money, but when you're making a film, that's not a lot of money. That's ultra, ultra, ultra low budget. Okay. So they want their money back, and they don't want the 250 back. They want the 250 back plus interest, whatever that amount is that you negotiated. So maybe they get 10%, maybe they get 15%, and they get that for basically the life of the film, right? So say your film plays at the movie theater, then it goes to streaming, and then you got the rent or buy type options on Amazon and things like that. They are always going to expect a certain amount of money, dividends, all of that stuff. And they should. They invested in your project. But the thing is if you're the filmmaker, and by filmmaker I mean producer, um, or the director, whoever else, and this is your baby, right? This film is your baby. You got other people eating off your film for the rest of the life of your film, of your project, right? You got to share that with other people. So then you got another route. Maybe you can borrow. But banks, they into lending money, but they want their money back too. And if you don't, or you default on that loan, or you don't pay it back on time, there are other consequences with that, right? So yesterday we were talking about this, or they were discussing this at these various panel discussions I was at yesterday, and one of the women there, producer, said this term, and I thought it's so apropos. She said, nowadays you can't just be a producer, you got to be an entrepreneur. And I sat there and I was like, ooh, Lord, entrepreneur. That means entrepreneur and producer. And I thought about it. I was like, that is a completely apropos term, because you know what? That is what I'm doing. That's what a lot of us are doing. When you meet a filmmaker and they're teaching, and you meet a filmmaker and we're working on other people's projects, or we may be working a day job that's completely unrelated to film. Essentially, a lot of us are working because we're trying to pay bills and take care of ourselves. We have expenses, right, in a certain lifestyle. And we're trying to put together money so that we can go and self finance our next project. So, someone like me, for example, I have clients that I work with. So, people are always thinking, like, well, you said you're a filmmaker. Like, why are you out here hustling, trying to get clients to buy services from your company? And I'm like, well, first of all, I do love teaching. I enjoy teaching, discussing, creating film, right? That's what I do. But the other thing is that um, I have a service, I have skills, I have expertise, education that I can pass on to others. So there's nothing wrong with me commodifying that and selling that to people who are interested in the various things that I offer. It's a way for me to be able to self finance my projects. Okay, that way I don't have to worry about investors. I don't have to worry about anybody else coming in and owning my project. Okay, anything like that. I prefer to self finance, or fundraise in other ways. And we'll talk about what are just some of those other ways of fundraising besides the ones that I've already named, right? So for me, I offer services on my website, right? And so if you're curious about my website and the services that I offer, this is my website right here. I invite you all to go ahead, take a look at it, look at the services. And if you see something that's related to the things that I offer, but it's not quite discussed there, go ahead and book a free consultation and I'll tell you whether or not I offer that service. So I offer a variety of services there. The other thing that I did was I started a clothing line called Free Radical, right? So people ask me, like, what's the clothing line about? I'm like, well, I'm a serial entrepreneur. And it doesn't mean that I'm splitting my time amongst too many different things. No, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm doing these things because I have projects to produce, right? That I want to take care of, that I want to do creative projects. Also, I'm an entrepreneur that has overhead, lights, gas, electricity. I mean, what? Well, what? A dwelling for me to sleep in, right? All of those things cost. So those are the things that I am doing with my money. Okay. Those are the things that I'm doing with my money, but primarily I'm using the money that I'm earning in my different businesses to finance and propel forward the projects that I'm interested in doing. right? It's not that I'm not interested in working with others. I definitely am. I love when people ask me to read their scripts, or to give notes, or, come in and help them produce a project, or they may ask me to even direct a project. I have no problems doing that. I love it. That's because I love film. I love what it is that I do. But I also have my own projects, set of projects and things that I want to get done for myself, for my production company. So I want to use my funds that I earn to do those things, right? To propel my stuff forward. So another way that we raise funds, as filmmakers, is you'll see them all the time. You might see, there's been a variety of platforms that filmmakers use, but one of them is just GoFundMe. I've used that before for a project that we were doing, and I was grateful to my community. I think we raised about, I think each of us had about 2,500, maybe a little more, 3,000. And then we raised, I want to say, about 1,500 to 2,000 more for this short film that we were working on. And it definitely helped. We had a bigger crew, bigger budget, to work with. We shot on location. We had to hire caterers. You have to get, because of where we were shooting, we had to get trailers for makeup for the actors. We had a lot of different stuff that we had to do, and so all of that money came into good use, right? Um, every time you see one of us filmmakers out there, we have a GoFundMe, or we're raising money, we're doing these different things, we're offering services. A lot of times it really is, to sustain ourselves as artists and to propel forward, to produce many of the things that we're working on, various types of content. I'm talking about film, I'm talking about social media type stuff, I'm talking about even those people, those creators out there who do a lot of skits and things like that. How do you think those things are getting done? I mean, the better looking ones, they're buying equipment, they're renting equipment, they're paying actors. A lot of times they have to pay an editor if they don't know how to edit. Um, they have to sometimes secure a location. They got to feed people on set. It's a lot of different things that have to go into it. And then that's all just during production. Post production, when we're editing things and we're putting in the soundtrack and all those different things, that costs a lot of money. Let's not even talk about promotion, marketing, right? All of those things tend to cost money. Now, nowadays, things are different. We have different platforms that aren't really costing us anything. But, depending on how your social media is, if you don't have a huge following and you want to get the word out about your film, now you need to at least purchase some social media ads. And you can purchase them for as little as $5 a day, or just $5. But you got to get the word out, all of those things. If you're submitting your film to film festivals, yeah, because how are people going to see your film? If you put it up online, people may or may not see it. Are you trying to get someone's attention? Are you trying to use this film to leverage to get more money and financing for your next film? All of those things you have to kind of think about as a filmmaker. Okay. And I know some of you are like, why would you use another film to kind of leverage your other film? Well, you're trying to show people, look, I did this short film, right? You thought it looked good, it looked cool. Imagine what I could do with a real budget meaning probably a couple $1,000,000, a few $1,000,000. And this other project over here that's maybe a feature length, maybe 90 minutes or longer, that I want to produce. Okay. And now with the way that social media is working, these different platforms, Twitch, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, all of those things, people are making shorter form content because that's what people want. But people want the content. So maybe we take an idea and we serialize it. So we make it into a series, because people are doing it already on social media. Anytime you have a creator who's like, stay tuned for part 10, and then they come back, okay, part 10.5, where was I in the story? Like the woman who did the one, who the F did I marry? That series that's a series that of social media posts that ended up being purchased. Like her life story ended up, that whole idea, it got purchased by somebody because they were like, it was so engaging. Very simple, low production, just a woman talking to a camera, right? Now, if I'm a content creator, perhaps I want to do something a little fancier, or that's not my zhuzh where I'm just talking to the camera, and telling you my personal life story, but maybe I have a story I want to tell. Well, I use the platform to get that story out there. So there's a lot of inventive things that are going on, but it still costs money to get some of those things done. So that's where a lot of the financing is going for. And if most celebrities have someone who runs their social media. If you're a really, really big celebrity, you have someone who just they run your social media on all the accounts. You may have access to it where you're posting sometimes, but 9 times out of 10, you have someone who runs that for you. You have a personal assistant. You have all these different things to help you get the word out about your projects and things like that. And now studios and different places are paying stars to do social media on their projects, um, because it's a part of promotion, and actors want to be paid for that. They go on these press junkets. They're on Today's Show, Sherry Shepherd, all these different places. They're talking about their movies and everything else. And then the studio's like, also, we want you to post about it on social media. Okay, well, I'm a celebrity. I don't really post on social media, but I got this person over here. They run my social media. I still have to pay them. They're going to pass that cost right along to the studio. Okay, how many posts a day? You negotiate everything. That's just the business. That's just the way that it is. Everyone, depending on their level of celebrity, I will say, um, everyone doesn't require that. Everyone doesn't do it. But I can tell you, if you're a big, big somebody, that's what is happening. I remember a couple years back, Kevin Hart. It was a kind of a controversy because Kevin Hart was charging the studios for him to do social media posts about the projects he was in coming out. Some people found it distasteful, but I think Kevin is a businessman, and I think the studio is overwhelmingly the winner. They own the project. They're going to continue to make money from it from here until eternity, essentially, right? So Kevin is just trying to maximize what he gets out of this project. You paid me to come in, and this was a few years ago, so who knows if he was an executive producer on the project in question, but you paid him to come in, you paid him to do his part, right? You want him to do a press junket afterward. All of those things, those are expenses. He's not paying for that. The studio's gonna pay for that. And now things are completely different. And studio is shook right now. The studios, when I talk about the studios, I'm talking about Warner Brothers, Lionsgate, all of these different big powerhouse studios. The studio system is changing because now content creators, filmmakers like myself, we can circumvent them and go directly to the consumer on our own social media platforms. And then there are other streaming platforms that are desperate for content. And there are people who are middlemen who are happy to help us get our stuff on various platforms so that we can monetize it and basically earn something from it. Okay. So the studios are not the only game in town. However, they're still one of the biggest. Okay. And as a filmmaker, I would be lying if I didn't say I didn't want my stuff picked up by one of the big studios. I would be lying. All of us do, right? But that kind of thing comes at its own cost, right? Most of us want to make art. We just want to make our movies and things like that. But like I tell artists all the time, this is a business. You got to be business savvy. And that's one thing that I really liked about yesterday is um, panel discussions is they had a panel with a tax attorney, accountants, lenders, like banks, all kind of private equity firms and stuff like that, because this is a business. You shooting in Georgia, right? I'm gonna shoot my film in Georgia. They got the Georgia tax credit. Do you know how to access it? You need to find a tax attorney who does. And you need to get with people who are producers who are like, this is how we take advantage of that tax credit, right? It's finding the right people to protect your content, finding the right people who are maximizing your returns on your content. A lot of times I've met people who literally signed their whole life away when they signed this a production deal. I mean, the music industry, whew, God, that was rife with it, right? You don't even own your own voice in some of these contracts. I know because I've seen them and I've worked with artists when we were doing a soundtrack for our film, and it was like, yeah, he recorded a song, but we can't release the song in conjunction with the film. And the film I'm talking about is my film Blood First, right? Um, Wonderful artist signed to a record label, and they were like, that's nice. He did a song for you. In order for you all to release it, because he's under contract to us, you have to pay us $22,000. They had nothing to do with the song, nothing. And we were like, yeah, it's not that deep for us. We're not doing that. We can't. We're completely independent over here. So, every dime, no one gave us anything. So every dime that was spent with Blood First came out of our pockets as producers. Okay. And I have two other co-producers. And I mean, they worked hard to get the money to do all of these things. Because once we shot the film, we had to have the film edited. You got to have it scored. You need a soundtrack. You got to pay for rights to music, all kind of stuff. You got to have editors, sound designers, all of that stuff, right? So you got all of those things that are going on that you have to pay for. Now you think you're done, you're not done. Where are you going to show your film? How are people going to see it? How will people know your film is out there? So now you got to advertise your film, you got to market it. Who's your target market? How will you reach your target market? Commercials cost money. Are you just showing your film in one city or multiple cities? Then you need to have marketing in these multiple cities. How will you reach your audience? All of those things cost money. Commercials cost money. Are you trying to advertise? And back in the day, let's say in 2014 when our film was released, BET, 6 p.m. to 12 a.m. on BET, and almost every market, I'm going to say mostly every major market in America, was the most expensive for us on basic cable television. Thousands of dollars to have a commercial run. And you don't want it to run one time. You need it to run several times, right? So all of that it's a whole other budget, whole other can of worms. It's going to cost you a lot of money. But I fear I've talked too much today. I want to thank you all for joining me, and for forgiving me for having these little circles under my eyes. Your girl is tired, right? But like I said, I was really excited and turned on by the conversations that were had yesterday, the networking that was done. I know normally hate networking events because I feel like they're so fake, but I felt like everyone I met yesterday, and that was at the this Georgia entertainment event, like they were very, very genuine. I felt like I had found my tribe, which is rare for me. I felt like we all got it, right? So I'm excited to bring you all my next projects and things like that. So, again, if you are interested in learning more about film, telling your story, sharing your story, I'm here to help you with that. That's what I'm here to do. I have a client who has a book coming out very soon. And as soon as that's done, I'll go ahead and post about that. And I can't wait for that to come to the world. So, yes, I help authors. I am a copy editor, but more importantly, a deep line editor. So we really go through your text. We make sure that it is sound, and that you aren't being repetitive, that your research or the different things that you're espousing, it makes sense, things like that. So I have that going on. I also, of course, offer workshops in directing and screenwriting, as well as producing. So if you're interested in those things, go ahead and go to this website, www.arumilasdaughter.com. Thank you all and have a blessed day.